Welcome to Flipping Tables, where we bring all of our religious thinking to Jesus, who flips the table for his upside-down kingdom. I'm Julie Sexton, and I'll be your host. This is Season 4, Episode 8, and this is a special episode. I'm joined at the table by my friend, Kim Stolzfus. I met Kim through a mutual friend at our church just a number of years ago, and we became friends. She's easy to talk to, and one of the things that we really enjoyed doing together was walking and talking. And we walked miles together while having great conversations. And Kim's life inspired me to invite her to share her story at a women's retreat that I was coordinating a number of years ago. And her story is both hard and beautiful. And I'm honored to have her at the table today to share about some of her story about her life following the table flipper with all of us. So Kim, welcome to the table.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here. I feel like it's such a privilege to be able to speak with you, and also to share my testimony, which, you know, we both hope will resonate with people and give them hope in ways they may not have expected. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what you're going to share today will be a source of encouragement, a strengthening. It will be one of those conversations that spurs people on to not give up. And, you know, it is a privilege to have our lives intersect with people in that way. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for being willing to do that.
Thank you.
So I know you pretty well, but I would like for our audience to know you. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience briefly before we get into the heart of your story.
Sure. Well, I will say first that I have an amazing husband.
Yes.
His name is Todd, and we've been married for 23 years. I'm going to be wrong about that now, but we've been married and had a delightful marriage. And I think part of me getting through some of the difficult parts has been because I've had a good partner, and that was all God. But it came before him. My story starts before him. And a lot of the heartbreak happened before him to end during our marriage. We have a lovely dog, Josie, and people who know me will know who I'm talking about. She is a celebrity dog, and people love to love on her wherever we go. She's such a cutie. And then I also will say that one of my favorite things as part of my career is that I am a college instructor at the University of Kentucky. I just taught my first students yesterday. Have a good crew, lovely students. I am just blessed every time I get a chance to interact with students. And so, so I do have that PhD thing, which is a God thing, really, which some people, when they hear my story, are going to be like, wow, how did she do that? Because I would say the same thing at periods of my life. But God has really blessed me in that role.
Yeah. I love that you just dropped that you have this PhD. You have a lot of amazing credentials and experiences, and God has just done really some extraordinary things. And I told you before we started recording, like every time I get a chance to hear parts of your story, it always moves me. And God gets so much bigger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think some of us go through these things with the expectation that we must share this story. And so to share it is kind of part of the deal that God has made with me. If I'm going to work through you, you're going to share your story. And not all of it looks very good for me. You know, it's kind of ugly. But I think you're right. I think it's so important for all of us to do that. But in particular, the story is, I think, different in the sense of how God has appeared and shown himself in ways that I did not anticipate. I know probably we can all talk about that, but I hope what I discuss will, raise some things for people who haven't thought about the things I've gone through this particular way.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So, well, at this table, Kim, you know, because you're a podcast listener, and you know at this table that one of our objectives is to try to bring our religious thinking to Jesus.
Yes.
And we hold it out before him, and we invite him to flip the table so that he can transform our ways, because we want to walk in the way of the kingdom of heaven. And so I think a good place for you to start sharing would be about your experience as a child in church and about how you came to Christ.
Well, I think I came to Christ actually probably in a way that a lot of people will get. So I went to Sunday school practically every Sunday, and I remember hearing multiple times, which is beautiful, that Jesus was the only way to heaven. And the way you get to heaven is to ask Jesus into your heart, right? And that was a common phrase. I think it was said in a way that was meant to be, truly our entrance into heaven. Truly, from this point on, once you pray that, how wonderful that you're going to experience Jesus. The problem with that, though, was when I said that prayer, I was 12 years old. I actually remember being in the front of the house and saying, okay, Jesus, I want to be in heaven with you, so come into my heart. Not even understanding what that meant, but trusting that my Bible study teachers meant well. And this is the only way. So I think in that moment, God was like, okay, that's pretty good. Well, thank you for trusting me that far. The trouble came when I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I lose that? Or what do I do from now on? And the way I interpreted it was I had to be a good person, right? A good person. And, and part of that being a good person turned into being a people pleaser in the worst possible way, by the way. And this is unfortunately the way that Satan gets in our lives and turns around what could have, our potential with Jesus, with God, and what we can do when we really relate to him. And so I just got so frustrated because I could not do this. It was untenable. I couldn't be good in all things. I made my parents mad. And by the way, when you're a people pleaser, you lie, right? Because you aren't the bad person. So I remember in school, missing a library book and couldn't find it. So to be a good person, I stole the library card that had my data on it that said that book was out, so that I would not get in trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah.
So then people would still see me as good. I knew it was bad, but it was like that being seen as good was now becoming more important. So yeah, there's something about that I just kind of let go of probably what Jesus really wanted from me, what that meant to have the gospel. And also part of that is when, I had some terrible things happen in my life that I'm not going to really have time or the bandwidth to talk about here, that made me a very nervous person and anxiety filled. So you top all that people pleasing, all that trying to be good with anxiety. And you've got yourself a person who is really, really, really like just seeking all the wrong things to live in this world. And when you're in that spot, you're traveling away from God.
Yeah.
This is not what God wants for me or entails for any of us. He wants to be closer to us. But all I did was just draw myself away from him.
Yeah.
In fact, I began to see him as a very angry God who didn't love me. I remember when there were thunderstorms out, I got scared because I felt like that was God telling me, you are a sinner. Oh. You are a sinner. And how scary to hear that. And so anyway, that just says I was leading myself into a life of pure anxiety.
Yeah.
Pure anxiety, doing the wrong thing, not understanding at all who God was, that he loved me. It was all out the door. And then the world the world and all its beauty,
Everything's shiny and
inviting. It just looks so much better.
Yeah.
It was temporary, in college, especially when I went to college. But I had a lot of stress, and I was just looking for anything that would give me comfort and coping skills. And it was not the good things that God wanted for me. It was all the bad things. And so there you have it. Like, I really set my life up. And so...
one thing that you said to me in a conversation we had was you said it felt more comfortable to be fearful than to have peace.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing I've experienced. Yeah. In fact, I've gone through therapy with Christian therapists to get over that. So I had lived in so much fear and panic. Think about how many decades of that. I'm 52. I'm going to say it now. Decades of that, that I lived in fear so much that I really, when peace came my way, I was scared of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what that was. It did not feel comfortable. And, just to imagine that someone feels better and those very volatile situations. And I think it makes sense of those of us who've experienced, physical battery or if you've ever been a drug user, you're going after something that, the peace sometimes doesn't feel quite great. And then people say, don't you want peace? And like, you say yes. But that, a lot of that time maybe you've spent has been in just pure chaos and drama and anxiety. And that's all you know.
Yeah. Talk to me about being in college and I think you met a lady in Crew.
Adele. I love her.
Yeah, I love her too. Let's talk about Adele.
Oh, Adele. I know, it's amazing to know her name this many decades later. Well, I happened to be walking by a table at my college campus, and there was Campus Crusade for Christ, which is now Crew. And of course, as any of you know what Crew does, they had little pamphlets out there just to get to know who you were, and had some games and food. And they had a Bible study sign up. They didn't call it a Bible study. I think it's a small group or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I just knew... there was something strange about my idea of God. I was not feeling like God and I were, if anything, I was asking him to walk away from me. But I signed up for this study, and beautiful Adele calls me up and says, hey, I've got this group of girls. I went to, and we were kind of all in the same state. Kind of wanting to know God, but not sure what that meant, and feeling like he was angry. So it was a good group of girls. But what I loved about Adele, she took us one-on-one, to really get to know what our challenges were. And I felt like she really honed in on me. You're really not... I feel like you're holding back. I feel like there's something you're holding back. Because I went along with everything. Oh, this is beautiful. This is great. In Bible study, I finished it. Oh, lovely. But she asked me this question. Have you ever heard the gospel? And I was like, what? The gospel, well, Jesus comes into your heart. It's like, no. The gospel. Do you know what Jesus did for you when you say he came into your heart? And I said, nah, I don't think so. I don't really understand that part. And so she, on a piece of paper, she drew a picture. And some of you have seen this before if you've ever gone through really great studies of the Bible and what did Jesus do. And she showed me that sin had caused a distance between myself and God.
Yeah.
And Jesus, and she drew the cross as the bridge.
Right.
He sacrificed his life as man and God. He bled on that cross to take on all of my sins, everything that I've ever done. And his ransom was the way to God. And what's more beautiful is the resurrection demonstrated that he was God.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's how much God loved me. Mm-hmm. That Jesus did that for me. Now, she said, do you understand that God loves you no matter what you've done? You could tell him anything you can think of that you've been embarrassed by. And you can say, God, forgive me. And he'd be like, okay, walk with me. I will be with you. I have a good plan for you because you're showing love for me. And I was blown away. I can't tell you that it really bothered me in some way that I first never heard this before. But second, as you mentioned, it flipped the table.
Yeah.
Of how I saw God.
Yeah.
And
was it easy for you to hear?
No.
And did it make an immediate turnaround, or did it create?
Great question. No, nothing good.
The gospel is beautiful.
The gospel is beautiful.
It's good news.
I feel like it's always going to be powerful. So this is for all of you who share the gospel and the person walked away and you're like, it's over. They're never going to know the Lord. This is kind of what happened with Adele. Adele then showed me how to put God in the center of my life as a result. And because now if God loves you so much, you've got to trust in him. You've got to not put yourself in the center, which I've been doing the whole time, but give God the center of your life. And I told her, I couldn't believe I said this because being a people pleaser, we don't say things like this. But I said, I can't do that. I just don't trust that God knows me enough right now. Let me just think about this.
Yeah.
And I walked away from our conversation pleasantly. But, Adele must have been she must have been feeling like, wow, that person just walked away. I don't know where this is going to go, because that was the last time I've ever spoken to her in that moment. Which
is really something that those of us who are bold enough to take that risky step of sharing the gospel, we've all experienced that.
Oh, sure.
Where you think they didn't get it, they don't want it, and they're just walking away. Mm-hmm. And that can cause us to feel rejected and feel sad and all these emotions and be like, well, it's probably me. Like, that's what I would think. I would be like, oh, it's probably me. I probably didn't do a good enough job. These great people here at Cru, they've taught me how to make these drawings and explain the gospel in such a simple and beautiful way. But sometimes when I do that, it doesn't work out. And so I don't know. I have sympathy and compassion for her because, I know that, but I hope. And I know that you got to reconnect with her years into the future.
I did.
And
in a miraculous way, but yes.
And she got to hear.
Yes.
You made a way.
Yes.
You introduced me to this way, and it started a turning point in my life.
Absolutely. So much so that I was on the Cru advisory board.
Right.
Which is where she was part of Cru.
Yeah.
And we were at the same conference. And I was there as a professor who was learning more about how to share faith with fellow faculty members and with students. And on the college campus, she was there in her capacity. Yeah. It was a national conference, and I happened to mention it during, I think they brought up the professors who were there to give a little speech on where they were from and why they were there. And I mentioned Adele. I love Adele. And someone in the crowd said, I know Adele. And I said, really? Yeah, I remember she was at Washington State, which is where I went to college. And basically, everyone put it out there in text for us to get connected. And we did connect.
It's amazing.
And I got to tell her, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having the boldness to share that and to see me walk away, because what you did began the real transformation That was the beginning of the process. It planted a seed, as we say.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop thinking about what she said because it was so profound. So there's no doubt that moment made a difference. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And so I hope that encourages people to be bold and share the gospel.
Yes.
And to know the burden is on the Lord to finish the work.
Yes.
We don't have to close the deal. That does not mean that something went wrong on our end, because look at what God has done.
Yes.
And so I just love that. The whole sanctification process just takes the rest of our lives. And you were just really getting started.
I was just getting started and just heard the most powerful thing I think I'd ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
You know, truly the most powerful thing. And yes, I walked away. And yes, I continued my lifestyle because that felt more comfortable. Then that lifestyle was, again, not what God wanted for me.
Yeah.
But as I was in that, I did keep thinking about Adele and what she said. But I just would kind of blow, as we do, you don't want something to intrude on your
good time.
Selfish good times. I want to feel great. Wipe that out of my head and continue on. But in those quiet times, wow. Yeah.
It's a good thing that Jesus knows that the gospel does not necessarily erase people pleasing and root out all the religion all at once, because then we would be complete and we would, be done.
Exactly.
So let's fast forward a little bit to after you graduated from college with honors. Let's talk about what happened on a plane ride to Portland and what unfolded in your life the next 3 months.
Yes. And by the way, graduating with honors is very typical of someone who's a people pleaser, right? Getting good grades means a lot. And I did. I got good grades. I got a lot of honors and awards. And that was fantastic. It fed me, like the very self-oriented, I want everything. I want people to look at me and care about me and all that. But go ahead.
I want to ask you, because didn't you win like a communication award?
Yeah, I won a lot, actually. That's probably the most significant awards was Junior of the Year in Communication. And mind you, I was at the Murrow School of Communication. So if any of you know who Edward R. Murrow is, that was tops, right? Because then you'd have his family come and hear what you have to say, and you at the awards banquet. And then I was also granted Senior of the Year. To the dismay of some of my fellow students who are like, can you do that twice? And then I got a Haas Foundation, a scholarship, I guess you would call it, because for an internship in DC.
Okay.
Yeah, for short-term internship, which I did right after I graduated. So that was very important to let you all know that I was in DC and did some fun DC things, but everything happened in one corner of DC. Anacostia is where I lived and where I worked. So I didn't really get to know DC too well when I was there. But needless to say, when I came back home from DC, I had nothing, no job, nothing. And so I was looking out for jobs, applying at left and right. And then there came an opportunity to go out to Portland, and that's the plane trip you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so potentially interview for a couple of positions. And I had a friend there, so it made sense. I could fly out there, stay with my friend, do these interviews and whatnot. Well, I got on this plane and had my first full-blown panic attack. And when I describe it, it is horrifying. It's like you're literally feeling like you're dying. You've probably heard this before, but imagine you're in water and you're drowning. This is the feeling. Your body says it's shutting down. You'll hear people say, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, whatnot. And I don't even know how I stayed in my seat, because I was shaking, I was sweating, I was really wanting to vomit like 100 times. Like, I really was in bad shape. Didn't know what was going on. My brain just felt like it was not even static. My eyes were just nervously shaking, my mouth, everything was just terrible. I'm sitting there. Thankfully, I had the row to myself. But I can see why some people say open the door to this plane. I mean, I was looking for a way out, but I just knew better. I just like, it's not a long plane ride between these two places, about 40 minutes, maybe it's more than that, but not long. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, maybe it's just on this plane. You know, I was trying to think, what could this be? What could this be? I landed, but it didn't go away. I saw my friend. It just got worse. It was almost like now people are witnessing it. I wasn't talking. And so and no, I couldn't explain it. I just couldn't explain. I was like, I feel like I'm dying. I don't know what's wrong. And mind you, people had seen me a different way, you know. Yeah. These are college friends that knew me as like a go-getter and like the fun girl. And I'm like, I can't talk. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. So they took me to, you know, urgent care. And the guy didn't know what to tell me. He says, I think you're having like panic, you know, because like, I was sweating so much. And finally the decision was to put me back on a plane, back to Spokane, my home city, because they couldn't manage it. And it was just one panic attack after the other and just not stopping. Hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, nothing. And so they put me on the plane. That plane ride itself, I remember thinking, how am I the only one having this attack? It's got to be something everybody has, you know? Why is it just me? Getting home, finally landing, my parents picking me up and not knowing what to do. My poor parents. Like, this is not the child that they knew.
Yeah.
And, finally taking me to a doctor, getting me on just something that would calm me down, which actually did help, but it wasn't long term. Right. There had to be a long-term explanation for this. And so they didn't quite know what to do with me. My mom was calling all these different places and counselors and trying to get me to see a doctor. And she got me, she actually went to the library, took out a bunch of books. Could this be it? This be it? And if anything, it almost made me feel even more hopeless. Because not only was it not stopping, because my parents, you know, usually when you're around your mom, you kind of calm down and like, oh, mom, help. They couldn't save me.
Yeah.
Nobody could save me. Nobody could stop it by words. Nobody could stop it by prayer at that point.
Yeah.
Right? Boy, this is the hard part. I was hopeless. I've never felt hopeless ever. Never had depression my whole life. I was so hopeless, but at the same time, I would not commit suicide because I felt like that would, being a people pleaser again, maybe in this way it worked out that I would cause a scene for my poor parents and family. I could not do that to them. So what I did, which is just hard to say, but I did it. I asked God in prayer to please kill me. And I meant it. I asked him to run me over with a car, quickly, give me cancer, anything to get me out of this world.
I'm so sorry, Kim.
That was the most significant thing I prayed. That was truly a signal of how far I went in my hopelessness. Just wanted to be gone. Jesus or God, kill me. Please kill me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No.
My parents, I've never told my parents that. If they're listening, I love you. But I did say that. And I just went to bed that night and said, well, let's see what happens. You know, but still having panic, not eating, not sleeping. The next part is kind of the most interesting part of, again, my transformation. Some of you know, if you don't have cable, you get TV in various evangelistic television shows. And I couldn't watch TV at all. I mean, I couldn't. It just made things worse sometimes, even though it was a distraction just to get through it. And but I did put it on TBN because it was the only thing that had messaging, especially about people who had gone through so much and how God had saved them. in those moments. So I was hearing it again, not so much about the televangelists who were on there, but the people that they were interviewing.
Yeah.
It was so profound and powerful because I was hearing again and again and again that there were people who were at their wits' end, and Jesus made a way, right? Jesus made a way. And the thing I kept hearing is never, never give up hope. Never. Don't let it even cross your mind. Never give up hope. Because if God is your Lord and Savior, He provides. He's the provider of hope. He will never disappoint us. Never disappoint us. So that just made me kind of think about taking on the hope that God provided. And the other part of their messaging was, but you've got to depend on God here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got to depend on God. You can't just do it on your own. You've got to say, God, be with me. I give this all to you.
Sounds like surrender.
Surrender. Yes. This is yours. I'm just going to hope because you say I can. I've listened to these stories. I was really depending a lot on these stories, not in my own life, but in these stories to say, I've seen you do it. Okay, let's go. I don't know what I'm going to do. But in that moment, by the way, I'd been in bed for 3 months.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this was a 3-month period.
In bed, not going anywhere, not eating dinner with my family, not getting out, barely brushing my teeth, very rarely brushing my teeth.
Like 24/7, you and TBN,
Yeah.
listening to all of these testimonies.
One after the other, yes. And I was like, okay, that's it. After 3 months, I did something I hadn't done before, was get up and leave that room. And for people with panic attack, you'll know that you have such a fear of leaving because you don't want to have an attack anywhere. And so if you're in a space that for some reason you don't have them, you want to stay there. And for some reason, laying in that bed, it kind of helped a lot with that. But it's not the place I should be forever. I knew that. And so I got up out of that bed, walked out of that room, which is huge, sat on a chair next to where my mom was making dinner. And she looked around at me kind of surprised.
Like, where'd you come from?
What do you do? Wow, you're out of your room. And yeah, I am. And I proclaimed to her that I was going to grad school because I knew I had to do something. And I thought, I don't know why I thought grad school was a good idea, but I thought, well, in school, you get a lot of chances to go home. And if I just can get through the classes, even if I'm panicking, or maybe I can take a little something, get through classes, go home and sleep and just, get through. And the beauty of it was my mom said, okay, let's do this. She was like, I'm behind you. 'Cause she hadn't seen me say and want to do anything. So, of course, she's going to say, let's go. And because I had so many awards at my alma mater, they let me into the grad program there, the master's program. I don't think I'd get in any other way except for my experiences and my awards and my undergrad, which God probably created. God created that. And that they were like, okay, we'll include you in this year's cohort, because they knew what I was capable of doing. They had no idea that I was suffering and that it wasn't going to be the same Kim, but nevertheless, they let me in.
You went to grad school. Mm-hmm. You still had panic. You still had anxiety symptoms.
Oh, it was ugly.
And
it was ugly.
You persevered. And
yes.
So talk about your thesis and what happened that became like a catalyst to get you someplace you didn't really want to go.
Oh, yes. Yes. So it's funny because I had been in DC for that short internship I mentioned, and I loved it, but I didn't want to go back there. And for whatever reason, I'd actually prayed as I was nearing the end of my master's degree, and they said at that point, you're going to be looking for where you live. and doing whatever you do. And I prayed, God, don't send me to DC. Isn't that funny? Don't send me to Washington, DC. I can't go back there. And lo and behold, there was quite a miracle. And by the way, there's a lot of things that happened in grad school that got me through, including my mom spending the night with me a few nights. I left for 2 weeks because my panic was so bad. But I knew I was going to finish.
Yeah.
No matter what. And it just, the more I went through it, the more I stepped through it, the more I got done, even having panic attacks. But I got my thesis done. I was the last one, of course. Took me longer than the rest of my cohort because I had a lot of other things I was, fighting and wrestling with. And my thesis got the attention of a Department of Commerce policy person in the technology administration who happened to say, we're getting all these East Coast applications. We really need to have West Coast people here. So what happened is my application went on the top of many, 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 many people who wanted that job. Mm-hmm. And
the Lord answers prayers really strangely, doesn't he?
Yes,
they saw Spokane, Washington, and they're like, this is our girl.
This is our girl. That's what he said. He called me, and he barely didn't. It wasn't even an interview. It was like, wow, what do you think about your home state? And tell me about your thesis. And of course, I wanted to talk about my thesis. It's about the internet and non-adoption of the internet. And he was really interested in it. It really was so easy. And he said at the end of the phone call, you've got the job. I was floored. I couldn't believe it. I said, no, this can't be happening. I don't even know I took this interview. I said I didn't want a DC job. He's like, and you're going to come to DC in November in a couple of weeks. We'll get everything set up. You'll come do some training, and then we'll get you going. And I hung up that phone exasperated, excited that, wow, I landed a job, but in the very city that I said, God, don't send me there,
Yeah.
And that's where I went. And so with my, wow, to think, here's this girl who can be still having panic attacks almost, every day, doesn't have true control of it, is now going to fly to DC and work for the Department of Commerce in the policy administration, tech policy administration. And it is unbelievable. Most people would say that can't happen. No way. But, at that point, I was really starting to want to learn more about God. I was reading the Bible. I was praying in ways that, like, God, just take over my life. And I felt like this is crazy, but I'm going to do it because he got me through grad school, right? He got me out of my parents' house.
I mean, he's done some amazing things. So why not trust him with this next big step?
And I almost did it like this. I'm going to go, the way it worked for me is I said, I'm going to go to DC like it's a vacation. I'm going to try it out for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to come home. And for whatever reason, that worked. I had to kind of trick myself into not seeing it as a long-term thing. And so I packed my things and I got on the plane. And I did not have a panic attack on that plane.
It's amazing.
By the way, to DC, not one. And I landed, and that was the beginning of about 7 years of a beautiful life in DC. Not without issues, not but yeah, that was the beginning of I would say the next phase of my transformation.
Yeah, and because you pray these really radical prayers, Kim, that are, you're like, okay, God, I don't want you to do this. And then that's what happens.
That's a little audacious, but I think God was like, yeah, all right, I think he's okay with that. I was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm going to have you do. And I think that was the plan all the while.
Right. Well, one of the things that I loved about what you prayed in DC, you said you prayed that God would not give you any friends.
Yes.
But what happens is you end up with some of the most amazing community and this rich community, a great church, and
amazing church,
just immersed in Bible study in a great community. Still your people today.
They are still great friends of mine today, sisters in Christ. And Yeah, so I did pray, those of us who have panic disorder, anything like that, where it's actually harder to be around people.
Right.
That's one thing you try to do is because that it just brings more pressure on about don't have a panic attack now. They won't understand, all of that. So I prayed to God when I was in DC. Here's the deal, God. And I'm fully in charge of God, right? Yeah. Here's the deal, God. I don't want friends here. That's the only way I'm going to make it. And so I can remember even where I prayed it. And it was just so significant that would be the case. Like, we had a deal. Well, I got a call from someone, and mind you, I wasn't giving my phone number out to anybody.
Yeah.
But the person I interned with knew someone else who is also... I was just looking for people that were coming into the city and just said, I would just love to meet new people. And so her name was Janeth, beautiful Janeth. And she called me and said, hey, would you be interested in going to church? My church. I'll pick you up. I'll take you there. And of course I'm going to say yes, because I still... there's a part of me that did want to make connections with people. I did want friends. You know, I knew it'd be really hard and a lot of pressure on me. It would be a battle, but I was going to do it. And Janet seems so sweet. So Janet took me to church, and I got to hear from a wonderful pastor, Lon Solomon, who I still listen to sometimes. And it just so happened that there was a call for people to join Bible studies at this church. The church was huge, by the way. McLean Bible.
Still huge. Still a great church.
It's a great church. Great church. And I was like, okay. I think maybe even they called it small groups at that time. And I went upstairs. I thought, there's got to be nobody in the district. Because, mind you, this church was way out in Virginia.
Right.
Who's going to have Bible studies in the middle of... I was in DuPont Circle. Yeah. Which is kind of the crazy part of the city, to be honest. It's fun. It's a little nutty. Nobody's going to live there. But it was the only apartment I could afford, right? Well, lo and behold... I get a phone call, and the phone call was, we have a Bible study happening within blocks of where you live, and there's a bunch of us who are DC, employees of various. We are employed various places. We'd love to have you come. And I'm thinking, what? And I look at the address; it is so close to my home. It's only like 2 blocks away. And so I agree to go, and the night comes when they've invited me, and I'm just mumbling the whole way, like, these people will not understand me. Satan it was even working then. Don't go. They're going to just you're going to have a panic attack. They'll just think of you as different and not want you. And anyway, I went. I walked right through that door. I was just like, I don't know what, God is good, right? Yeah. And from that group, by the way, we were all kind of in the same place where we all had heard the gospel, praise God, but we didn't know what it meant to work for the Lord, in the sense that, how do we be good ambassadors to the Lord, and where is their freedom in that? The joy, the beauty, just the glory of working in such a way, not even working, but just letting God take over. And we were all kind of like nervous Nellies about that. So we started with, breaking free. Got to start with Beth Moore.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And then went from Bible study on Romans, and none of us knew Romans that well. And we just were going and just becoming on fire for God. We refuse to let go of each other, because sometimes our church likes to say, oh, break up and join another.
You're like, no way.
No way. These girls, we are going through this together. And we did. And people were crying and giving up things like boyfriends and, whatever, drinking. I mean, for them, whatever God was calling them to do. And I was like, wow. I was so moved in that Bible study, to the extent that one day I was looking out the window of where we were having our Bible study. She had a beautiful window, just beautiful, large, and you could look out on DC, and And every time I looked out, I just saw the beauty of the city. But all of a sudden, to me, and this is true and real, it was black and white. Mm-hmm. It looked dark and ugly. It was not a rainy day.
Yeah.
It was just how God was showing me.
Yeah.
This is the world you want to be part of? This dark world that doesn't give you anything substantial, enduring. You just come out of it lower than you were before? Mm-hmm. Or do you want me?
Wow.
And I'll do everything to love on you. When you cling to me, you will have a purpose beyond anything you've ever known. I will never disappoint you if you just seek me out. Ooh, that moment led to the prayer that I said not long after, that I'd never said before. And that prayer is, God, work through me. Jesus, work through me. Help me to let others know your promises, your glory, your gospel. You know, what you have for us. That's so much better. And inconceivably better than what this world has to offer. In a town, by the way, where your job and what you make and who you know seems to be important, it became unimportant. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
There's a bigger, more important, and even in some way urgent need. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I wanted to be part of that. And I felt so excited. That's a funny thing. I told one friend who wasn't a Christian, who asked me, well, what do you want to do next after your consultant? I was a management consultant then. Said, I want Jesus to work through me. Right? And the response I got was quiet. I don't even know what you mean.
That's a pretty table flipping comment to make in the middle of DC where everybody's pursuing.
Yeah, that does not compute. You know, that was a churchgoer person, but didn't understand what that phrasing meant. But oh my goodness. And in that consulting building, by the way, full of, you know, people from the best consulting firms in the world were in that building helping to modernize government agencies and, you know, just their tech and their business processes, because everybody's frustrated with government. So we were supposed to come and save the day and make government easier on citizens and all that. But yeah, they created a building just for us. And in that building, you know, I decided to go up to the program manager, who basically was running probably 20 projects at once, part of this larger program. And I sat down with him and I said, I am interested in hosting a Bible study here for people that want to meet at lunch. And it's like, I don't know, it's like he didn't know what to say for sure. And he didn't want to say yes, he didn't want to say no, but almost like he couldn't see what was wrong with that. And so, which is really, I think, again, yeah, you know, Christ creating that moment, right? Let's just jumble up your head right now, you know. And this guy was so smart and so, I would say discerning in a lot of ways, in a human way, discerning. Yeah. But in that moment, he was confused.
Yeah. Did you know what to do?
I never looked at him confused ever in my program experience with him. And he said, okay, as long as you don't market it out with flyers, you can have a room here and do it. Just don't market it. And I was like, okay. And I kind of ran right out of there because I had his approval and that's all I needed, right. You know? And so I did, word of mouth, like a bunch of us met during lunch and some wonderful, it ended up being women, females. We all met for lunch and had our Bible study. It was incredible. And I went from there to, you know, now what do you want from me next, God? This has been awesome to share my faith at the place of my work. And people know I love Jesus here, you know, in a place where that's not a common. It's not common for people, even believers would be very quiet about that. And I was like, no way. No way. I can't. I just need people to know, what is going on with me.
Man,
I want them to ask questions.
It's just incredible. I just get so overwhelmed listening to your story because it's painful and it's bleak, and you share so rawly today, and I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable on a big platform like this, because we don't know who is going to be listening to this podcast and how they are going to be ministered to through this, to be encouraged, to be spurred on, to continue pursuing God. And I'm just blown away at the way God worked in your life and transformed your prayers, answered them, always answered them, not usually the way you wanted.
Exactly.
But then he worked because he knows what's best, and he's got a plan for you, and he is working his plan out in every part of your story.
Every part. Yes, no doubt. He loved me throughout it too. That's what's beautiful. You're in Matthew, and I think about blessed be the poor in spirit, right? I was a poor in spirit. My spiritual life was not there. I didn't want God to be part of it, and yet, that's so powerful. He's like, no, you're my child. Maybe saying that little prayer at 12 years old was enough for him to say, okay, you knew me a little bit. Didn't quite know how to know the glory of knowing me personally.
Yeah. It's a progression.
It's a progression. And I just want to say for anyone out there, never, never, never give up. I don't care what the circumstances you're in, what they are. Never give up. Always have hope. God, again, I said this before, will not disappoint.
Yeah.
We don't know. We have no conception of what's possible. No conception of what's possible. Only he really knows. And so, I've been through it. I'm still going through a lot of medical issues and whatnot, some really scary things to this day. But as you know, when God says, if you have faith as a mustard seed, right? You can say, move this mountain, and it will move. We forget that our faith is a mustard seed, small faith. And do we think we're moving the mountain? No, God is.
Yeah, because that's what he's done in your story.
He has moved those mountains. And I think my experience, which has had a lot of very, very difficult times, some I mentioned that were beyond anything I'd imagined I'd ever go through. But wow, has he just given me so much to look back on and say, you are a good God. I love you. Thank you so much for loving me in ways that I cannot comprehend.
And you're still, you mentioned at the top, you're a professor at the University of Kentucky. And one of the things that you are so incredibly good at is being a witness to your students, and you have such a heart to make disciples wherever you go. And you have been discipling college students, and you all this work that you have done, bringing people into your home and just bringing them to your table, and just investing in them and letting them know, and some of these parts of your story. And you told me, you said you've encountered innumerable amount of students who have said to you, I have never met someone who has gone through things that I have gone through. Yes. When I've shared my story with students, which I do up front, it's actually in my syllabus, which is interesting. Just to let students know that no matter what they're going through, you'll see my kindness and my compassion and my grace and that, so they don't have that pressure.
you know? So yes, I have shared my story with students, and I can't even tell you. Todd, my husband, is just always amazed. Like, God is amazing, you know, because I'll say, I had 2 students in my office today who said, how do you survive that? Never heard any professor say they suffered from anything. They seem like they have it all together. And we want to know how you do it because we need to survive it. And I told you, not only that, it's just been so many situations where I'm discipling a student, or if I was giving a talk, you know, on campus about my faith with other students, just
talking to students that came into my office that were just weary. One story is interesting. I think I shared with you, actually I did, when I was at UC Santa Barbara, where I was a grad student there. That's where I was getting my PhD. And I had classes that I taught there, and I was much closer, because as a TA, you become much closer than the professors often are in these large lectures, right?
Yeah.
And I was walking on campus there, and a student literally ran up to me. It's kind of scary because I didn't know who was coming at me. Happening? Right? And like, what's going on? Oh boy. And she just said, Kim, because I wasn't Dr. Stolzfus quite yet, Kim, I just need to know what to do. I am suffering from panic attack, and you talked about it. I'm desperate. Just kind of like, just in desperation, grabbing hold of me. And then that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the moment, you know, God talked about a lot that you're going to, you know, even possibly bring others to the resources that they need to get through this. But we can talk about, you know, Jesus through it too. But she was so desperate. And so I brought her to a place where she could get help and, you know, just to be clung to. And I think about, you know, being able to speak Jesus into her heart too. I don't know where she's at in that, but there's a lot of desperate young people out there, and who just need this. I needed it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was on the college campus. That's why it's fun to come full circle, be at a college campus and be the one, just like Adele, to serve God in a way that you're giving people the answer that they're seeking in a place where they're hearing a lot of different things. And the answer is a healing answer.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it is a picture of following Jesus is learning how to cling to him.
Mm-hmm.
And to not let anything hinder us from sharing the gospel, from inviting people to our tables, to being willing to get into someone else's suffering, and just help them to be seen. Mm-hmm. Adele saw you.
Mm-hmm.
People intersected with you that saw you.
Yes.
That were steadfast. Mm-hmm. And God just kept opening doors for you, and he continues to open doors for you. And I know that I'm sure you've read The Anxious Generation. And
I have not.
You have not. It's well, I mean, you would love it, but you would also it just reading it just shows me what people are up against. And I just I'm getting ready to start a new book called The Anxious Generation Goes to Church.
Oh, wow.
And so I will report back to you on that book.
Well, I should add it. I think I have about 5 minutes to read outside of my own readings currently now that I'm teaching. But, you know, I love to get that material in, especially. I do live it. Probably a lot of what's in those books.
I'm thinking you don't need to read the books, but people like me.
I think it's great,
and so I bring the books up and mention them to people just because I'm just like, it is eye-opening for those of us who have not lived and through what you've lived through. And because we need
compassion.
Yes, absolutely.
And we need to be extending loving kindness towards people because we don't know what they're going through.
Exactly.
And this is one way that I can better equip myself with good resources. And of course, the best resource is God's Word and being in God's Word. And so, Kim, it has just been a great joy to talk to you today.
Oh, likewise. Likewise. Thank you for letting me share. And I'm just praying for those who are hearing this and whatever you're going through, no matter where you are, that you see the light of Jesus, the beautiful light, not this dark world that tells you things that aren't true. And that there is beauty, hope, love, joy, all of that in there. Even in the hardest times that you have, it's not going to always be easy, but you have an anchor that's always going to carry you through it. Yes. So don't ever believe anything differently.
So, Kim, we always wrap up with a bright spot here at the end of the episode. And I will share my bright spot, give you a second to think about one.
Okay.
But I know it's in January and when you guys are listening to this episode, but my bright spot, I'm going all the way back into Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, I was sitting at my mom's and dad's house, and we were getting ready to have dinner and all these things, and I heard my phone ping, and I got a message from one of these precious Afghan refugees that I got to serve this past summer on my mission trip. And she was wishing me, this beautiful Muslim woman was wishing me a Merry Christmas, and just sent this lovely prayer, and it just undid me. I was so humbled and so filled with joy that someone living in unspeakable circumstances with so much dignity being withheld from her remembered me on a holiday that is not even important to her.
Wow.
And it just was a bright spot, and it just reminded me of so much beauty in the midst of brokenness.
Yeah. Wow, that is a bright spot. That is incredible.
Good? It was incredible.
I'm trying to think of one that I'm not going to match that because
you don't have to.
Across the world, a Muslim. Oh my gosh, I just love it. I just love it. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a good bright spot. Mine's going to be just, I think, meeting my students yesterday. It was my first day of classes, and they are a joy. They are a great crew of students who I think are meshing really well together. And every time I get a class like that, I get excited about what's possible with them.
Yeah.
And they're great students. One of my students came up who's just come to know Christ and said, "Are you gonna involve any kind of Christian? I'm going to teach a nonprofit class. Are you going to involve any Christian nonprofits in this?" I said, "You never know, because that's what I do." But it was just, these students are just funny and delightful and goofy, and it seems like it's going to be a joy. First day is everything. For those of you who teach, you kind of know what I'm saying. Your first day is everything because you already can feel like, ooh, which direction this is going to go. Who's going to be the loudest in the room that's going to sort of push whatever their agenda is there, This was a great group. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see them again tomorrow and work with them for the rest of the semester. So,
well, I think that's a great bright spot.
Yeah.
And it is probably going to be an opening to many more bright spots for this semester. So that will definitely be my prayer for you.
Oh, thank you.
And for your students.
Thank you.
So, friends, I know that this conversation has encouraged you and has inspired you, and Jesus has gotten bigger because of what he has done for my dear friend Kim and continues to do for her. So I hope that you know him, and I hope that you are sharing the good news about Jesus with others. So friends, keep following the table flipper and leave the table flipping to Jesus.